All right. Let's do it then.
Let's do it.
So first, before we get started, I want to say thanks. So I think I started writing in November, and like day one, you were reading it, sharing it. I started getting LinkedIn requests from people from Sweden that I can't even
Yeah,
read the language they're writing in. But I just want to say thanks for
yeah, of
reading my
course.
stuff, embracing my ideas. So yeah, appreciate it.
No, it's really good stuff. I mean, I think like I wanted to do the same thing, as in having a newsletter, all this kind of stuff. But I mean, yeah, if you don't start with it, you're never gonna start, right? I mean, it's the same with this
Exactly.
podcast video thing. I mean, that we're trying on
Hmm.
right now. I mean, it's so easy to say that you're gonna do it, but if you don't just start, I mean, then nothing's gonna happen.
Yeah,
And
if you
for
wouldn't have
me,
messaged me last week, I don't know how many weeks or in the future this podcast will actually start. But so
yeah,
thanks for
exactly.
that too, giving me a nudge.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. So I think I just wanted to again structure this like an intro. I mean, I think I know a lot
Yeah,
about you already from our connections online, but why don't you just
sure.
sort of introduce yourself, give me your
Yeah.
background, and then I think where I want to go to this is like, how did you get into the smart buildings industry, and
Yeah,
what made you make that switch?
absolutely. I mean, I think it's a pretty good story.
Cool.
And the way it started was, I mean, I started studying when I was 25, which is quite, I mean, I was feeling a lot older than everyone else, and I was a bit older than everyone else at the time as well.
Okay.
And I've been having like these odd jobs as sales manager, working with logistics in the UK for a year, working at a golf course was a fantastic job actually. But then I decided, I mean, I saw a lot of my friends getting like these careers in banking and all these kind of things, right? So I studied international management in Jönköping in Sweden, and I did it mainly because I got to be abroad for 1 year. So it's international management meant was basically learn a lot about everything. And so
Mm-hmm.
you end up with basically no real understanding of anything at all. But for me, it was really great because I mean, it was a lot of entrepreneurship, it was communication, it was, yeah, it's a little bit of everything. And then I studied in South Korea for 6 months, and I studied in Switzerland for 6 months, and both those experiences were fantastic. I mean, South Korea was amazing in terms of, well, of course, technology, but most of all, like the people. I really enjoyed it. And when I was in Switzerland, it was also great because one of the best business schools in Europe, in HSG St. Gallen. And I remember when I took that course, or like when I applied for that program, and my grades were, I mean, they were average, I guess. But when I applied for that program, I mean, I think like the tutor just told me, I mean, why you're doing this? I mean, you're not gonna get
Mm-hmm.
home with any points at all, right? But then I came back to Sweden with like taking the most points of everyone that has ever been to that university,
Cool.
and that's what like got me going, right?
Okay.
And after that, I was international management, and then I studied a master's in IT management. And at the same time, I really wanted to do more things, right? And I was said yes to being an advisor for a startup, an incubator in Lagos, in Nigeria.
Okay.
And
Wow.
at the time, I didn't know anything about Africa. I didn't know where Nigeria was. I had no idea where Lagos was, and I've never been there still. But I was an advisor for that incubator for 1 year, and
Okay.
then I made an investment into one of the startups. So
Okay.
everything just happened via Skype and all these kind of things, right? So
Huh.
it went really well in the beginning, and then it didn't. Then it didn't go so well. So it's part like, I mean, it was an audiobook company or audiobook startup. So it's like Audible, and this was 6 or 7 years ago. So it was quite a
Okay.
hype about like audiobooks and all these kind of things. And I thought like, I mean, Nigeria is 200 million people. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
what could go wrong, right? Internet penetration, mobile phones everywhere. But the problem was, download a book. There was like so many problems, but one of the problems was that when you download a book, like the charge for the data was going to be like astronomical. So like the
Okay.
book in itself didn't cost that much, but like the book was gonna be like a couple of $100. So
Right.
but we got investment, and we got picked up on an accelerated track in Helsinki at Slush. So
Okay.
Slush is the world's largest entrepreneurship conference,
Okay.
and we got picked up there. And I was just waiting for my team, or one of the founders actually, who was coming from Nigeria. So this was the first time we met in person.
Mm-hmm.
And while I was waiting for him, I mean, you know how it is on the conferences. You go there and you think you're going to do stuff with like 5 people. Nothing really happens anyway. And then there's this one guy or girl that
Yeah.
will like end up with doing stuff in the future, right? So what happened was I was just waiting, and then just asked this guy, okay, hey, can I wait here? I'm waiting for all the other founders. And yeah, of course. So what do you do? So yeah, short story long, he showed on his phone that he could sort of control his home, right? So he could
Okay.
see when someone opened the refrigerator, he could turn like the lights on and off, and all of these kind of things. And this was, what was it, like 6 years ago, 6.5 years ago, I guess. So it's
Damn.
right
Okay.
before like the IoT hype. And for
Mm-hmm.
me, I never thought about home automation. That really didn't really exist. And
Okay.
building automation for me as well, I mean, never heard about it. Like HVAC, backnets, all of these kind of things, like no idea whatsoever.
Right.
So, and this guy was like, I recognized that he was a genius, and they had like a phenomenal technology. I mean, we actually stayed in touch, and I started helping him pro bono just with strategy stuff, and I wanted to learn more. And so he was based in Iceland. Fast forward to where we are today. I mean, I helped them on the side, also working as a management consultant. I had my own web agency at the time, doing a lot of these things. So I started off just helping them, or him, TJ. So he's the founder of GoIoT, whereas I was acting CEO
Okay.
before. And then
Okay.
I sort of transitioned more into doing the strategy. I created sort of like half of the website. I helped them with everything. I sat in on meetings. Then was in charge of international business development. And I remember like the first meetings when we talked to Terry Herr, who works at Intellimation out of
Okay.
Philadelphia, right?
Yeah.
And so he was interested, and he reached out, he saw our website, and he was really interested in getting a data pump from the building, all these kind of things that we were still trying to do.
Okay.
And I remember in that call, I'm almost finished here. And I
No,
remember
no,
that call.
don't cut yourself off. I like the story. Keep going.
So in that call, in one of the earliest calls, I remember I wrote everything down. I still have like a notepad on the
Okay.
computer, like Terry Herr meeting 2015 or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And I understood maybe 5% of everything that was said in the call, like nothing, like backnet, tagging,
Yeah.
cases, points, whatever. I mean, I didn't understand anything that was said,
Okay.
like absolutely nothing. So, but I wrote everything down because that's what I do in most of my meetings anyway. And at the time, I was working in then, I was a management consultant for Volvo Cars, then for Swegon, which is OEM for HVAC units, so air handling units and these kind of things, and indoor
Okay.
climate stuff. And I was in charge for the wireless side of this. So they had like this demand control ventilation system. So I went from being sort of like part, sort of like application owner or manager for part of that application, and then I went to project manager for the whole suite of that demand control ventilation side, right?
Who
And
was that?
then
What company was that?
Swegon, Swegon, so Swegon.
Okay.
They're, I think, like the biggest player in Sweden, fairly big in the Nordics. I know they got some presence in the US as well. And
Okay.
they were using this wireless mesh solution, which I'm promoting left, right, and center
Okay.
in their products, right?
Okay.
So it started off, I guess, with Nigeria and audiobooks, and then it went into sort of like IoT edge gateway with GoIoT, where we wanted to harmonize everything IoT underneath a backnet umbrella. So if you look
Okay.
at everything from the top, even if it's like whatever, everything should be backnet device objects, backnet devices and backnet objects basically. So that was really cool, but yeah, I mean, technology is one thing, and having a phenomenal technology, but you're lacking in other aspects, or the market doesn't really understand what you're offering. is of course a pain, so to say.
Yeah.
And I think like the last 8 months, so I was the acting CEO of GoIoT for about one and a half year. And then I decided to go on my own since last summer. So working for some real estate owners here in Sweden, basically with digital twin strategies. And now the last, 5 months, I've been working together with a digital twin company. I would say the leading digital twin company in Sweden called Synca BIM or Synca Group. And they have a new initiative, which is called Digital Buildings. So it's basically sort of like creating that secret recipe of how to harness and manage like all the BIM stuff that you do in the construction phase, but actually make use of it in the asset management phase. So I think that's what we're doing now. And I've been advising them on the connectivity strategy, as in how to create real connected digital twins and getting data both from existing systems, from IoT stuff, and getting that actually to work in a nice and fast way. I mean, getting data out can be fast, can be extremely slow. Making sense of it is another thing. Getting back to actually controlling the building and creating autonomous building is also, I mean, all of these kind of things, right? So, I mean, that's where I am today. I actually had the, part final presentation this morning. So that was great. Yeah. So we're still like probably going to do some other next steps and all these kind of things. But it was really nice to get that done. And I've definitely learned a lot because I've been mostly focusing on the asset management phase, but it's also a lot of the construction side as well. And I mean, building smart from start, I think it's something that is super interesting as well. And sort of, we can talk a lot about more about that as well. But I mean, so that's how I'm sitting here. And I'm also a contributor to Automated Buildings. And one of like the most important people for me has been Ken Sinclair.
Yeah, what's his influence been on you?
I mean, everything. Everything. I mean, I started reading his blogs in the beginning, right? Again, like these 5% has hopefully grown to 150% of an understanding of what's going on, right? So, but those 5%, I mean, of course, I learned a lot from TJ, who was the founder at GoIoT, both from like in terms of hardware, software, also Paul Humphreys, who was our hardware designer. So I know little bit about like hardware design, really deep down, to be honest, and also the software layer, the cloud layer, and stack-wise, and all these things in the middle. But I think like in terms of an industry perspective, it's automated buildings. I mean, just going back, reading stuff like 20 years ago, and I think it's the same for you. Like we think, or I like to think that I'm innovative, I'm new thinker, all these kind of things, right? And then you go back 20 years. And
these guys have been thinking about this for decades.
Same, right? Exactly the same. And it's like, almost like right now, I'm sort of blushing because I'm so like ashamed of like my early thoughts. Like, why has no one ever thought about this, right? Wrong. Like everyone has thought about it. A lot of people have tried it. And I mean, a legend, Mike Newman, left us like the other day, right? And I know that, I think it was Calvin from Climate Tech, or maybe it was Zach from Contemporary Controls that said, I mean, when he was writing this BACnet, like the first couple of editions, I mean, it was really bashing on the OEM side because they didn't really want to change, right? I mean, it's still the case, but I mean, like they didn't really want to change. So you can see in that text, it's exactly the same passion that I have. I mean, I really want this industry to change because I see a lot of potential. But I was really wrong in thinking that I'm the only one, which is good, and definitely not the first one. So I think that's sort of like definitely a humbling experience. And I remember, I mean, looking up to Ken as really a hero. And then I met him at the HR Expo. I think it was in Chicago the first time. And then we kept in touch. And now it's more or less, I mean, he's mentoring me, I'm mentoring him. And a lot of the stuff that's coming out of Automated Buildings the last 6 months has been like this born connected stuff, or getting reborn connected, or wireless ways, and these kind of things has been a lot because me, Zach, Brad White, Zach Netzal, Brad White, and Calvin Slater, I mean, we have this whole open approach to the industry, and we really want to, create more openness and transparency and democratizing everything that goes on, basically.
My experience with Automated Buildings was like, I graduated from college, super excited about energy efficiency, and I get into a real building, and I'm like blown away, you know, by the first 100 days of my job, pretty much. Like right off the bat, I'm like what is like, this is not what I expected at all. And then I found automated buildings at some point, and I just started to feel like, oh, like there's someone else out there that gets it, right? And those guys have been writing about these topics for, man, for I think it's 20 years, right? Yeah, it's crazy.
It is.
Yeah.
It's actually crazy. But, so, I mean, okay, reverse then. How did you come into this industry? Where did you start? And I mean, what keeps you going as well, I guess?
Yeah, exactly. So mine's been a little bit more linear than yours. I'm super inspired by how you kind of just went from one thing to the next until you found what it is, which is great. So yeah, my degree in college was in mechanical engineering, and I'll try not to make this an hour and a half story, but I took a sustainable energy course as an elective in my final year at school. And I had no idea what I wanted to do up until that point. I just knew I was kind of a tree hugger at that point. All I knew was like, I was reading treehugger.com, for instance. That was like my most visited blog probably in college.
It's like, saving the world intention, right? Something like that.
Yes, exactly.
Exactly the same here. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah. And I didn't know what I wanted to do. All I knew was at that point in my life that I just wanted to play soccer. So I played soccer in college, and I like to say that I majored in soccer and minored in mechanical engineering because it was like a full-time job. So anyway, in the sustainable energy course.
Which position did you play?
I'm most native as like a center midfielder, but in college I was kind of in over my head. Like I shouldn't have been on this team at all. So it was whatever I can get on the field. So I played right back, I played center back, but nowadays when I play, like I had a game last night, I play center midfielder. I like to run the show a little bit.
The playmaker, exactly.
Yeah. Anyway, I was in the sustainable energy course, and the teacher kept bringing in guest speakers. And about halfway through the semester, he brought in Anne Hill. And Anne Hill, if you're listening to this, thank you very much for getting me into this world. But Anne was a leader for a mechanical contractor, and she was starting an energy efficiency group within that mechanical contractor. And that group, so the mechanical contractor is called Murphy Company. They started a group called M360 that was focused on energy efficiency, retro commissioning, and performance contracting. So they were kind of growing into an energy service company, which I'm not sure what they call that in Europe. Do they call that an ESCO in Europe?
No idea.
No idea. Yeah. So they basically they structure contracts so that the energy savings pay back the loan for the construction. Is basically the model. Okay. And so from there, I went to another ESCO called Energy Systems Group. Right around that transition, I started using analytics software. So
when was this?
This was 2013. So I started using analytics software for retro commissioning, and then when we did a performance contract, we would install the software to then maintain the savings throughout the life of the contract. So we would monitor buildings for the utility bills, but then we would also monitor the systems themselves using fault detection to make sure that what we expected was happening was actually happening.
Exactly.
And at that time, that was
favor for your business model. Is it like EPC, energy performance contracting?
Exactly.
Basically. Yeah. Okay.
Yep. So the savings are guaranteed, and so our motivation was, if we monitor this, we can make sure that the savings don't drift and nothing gets overridden and that type of thing. So I then went to Energy Systems Group and tried to kind of start the same model. That didn't work out. A year later, I ended up at a consulting firm called Sit Energy Solutions as their director of analytics. And so they hadn't gotten into analytics yet, and I knew from 2013 that this is what I wanted to do. I think this model is really powerful, and so we set up. They're just a straight consultancy, so they don't do any construction or anything like that. So it's a different model than what I was used to. But what was interesting about them is they're totally independent. So they could serve an owner and basically design the solution to what that owner needs, right? So we set up that model that, you know, we decided that we were going to be independent, but we also wanted to do and become an analytics shop in-house. And so we became a SkySpark reseller.
Okay. Yeah.
And I started that from scratch. And so I was like the person who was selling it, the person who was managing it, a little bit of the programming. I was managing the programmer. So I was basically doing everything except for writing the code to make this all work.
For me, just as a comparison, I mean, I think that if TJ is listening, I'm not really, I think he agrees if he digs deep down, but I mean, like for me, it was a lot of that as well. I didn't write any code, but I did like the marketing, everything, in just trying to figure out like how to get this to market and how to satisfy the customer needs and just like everything. I mean, that's how I learned everything. So it's great. I mean, I think that was a great school for you as well, I guess.
It was absolutely a school. I mean, and I wasn't the only one, but I was kind of leading it. It was kind of my baby. But we created a new business model around it. We created a new pricing model, a new message, right? So it's changing from we're going to sell you this hour of consulting. We're really smart, to changing that to we're going to monitor your buildings, and that's going to be a subscription, and we're going to give you insights. So, I mean, we could talk more about that, but that was kind of the last 4 or 5 years before joining NREL. So we basically used SkySpark and then helped building owners implement SkySpark or implement other software if they were wanting to go in a different direction than SkySpark. So last summer then I decided, you know, I didn't want to do everything. I just wanted to focus on the technical side of analytics and kind of go deeper into less about, let's see if I can explain this. I wanted to do less with specific building owners solutions because a lot of the building owners were, it's not that they were behind, but they were behind, right? So we're selling them.
No, but I mean,
that
they are behind, but I think like it's not their fault.
No, absolutely.
I think that's the case, right? I think like the whole industry is behind, and it's someone's fault, and maybe we know whose fault that is, but I don't think it's the owner's fault that they're behind.
Yeah, I mean, we can untangle that for weeks. Probably still not get there, but I was feeling like I wanted to kind of get to the cutting edge, if that makes sense. And NREL, where I currently work, was they're at the cutting edge. I get the chance to read and go deep and read research and talk to people like you. And I think I should probably qualify that nothing that I say represents NREL in any way, but the job basically provides the ability to be a subject matter expert and kind of get to the bottom of what's holding back this industry, so we can kind of knock down those obstacles. So that's kind of my journey, where I'm at today. So
it's really cool. But I mean, like, okay, so for NREL, like the company that you work for today, what do you do then? You're like this subject matter expert on all the things cutting edge, and you help customers, or you help the internal organization in picking the right tools, or is it a combination, or what is it that you do?
Yeah, so NREL is a national lab of the U.S. Department of Energy, and there are 17 of them, and I don't even know 6 months in if I could really explain how that system came to be and how we're different. But our focus is energy efficiency and renewable energy. So it started 40 years ago as like the pioneer in solar, essentially, like in the world.
Yeah.
But now it's grown into this very large organization, so 2,500 people. And there's a lot of people focused on cutting edge research. Our group is not as focused on that. It's more focused on applying the cutting edge research. So later stage technologies, helping organizations implement those later stage technologies. And the focus is on federal government institutions, agencies. So we do a lot of work with the Department of Defense, GSA, kind of helping them with their portfolios and helping them. The way I like to think about it is, like I just said, knocking down obstacles. So how can we use our expertise to move whatever initiative forward that we can? So sometimes that looks like doing a demo. So like right now we're doing a demo for a certain type of analytics software and helping them decide out of their 10,000 buildings they have across the country, across the world, which one of those makes sense for this technology and which ones don't make sense. And then what are the energy savings? Does the technology work like it's supposed to work? Because there are a lot of claims out there, right, that need someone to kind of look under the hood.
Can you explain a bit more about that? I mean, all the platforms that are out there, they do everything, right? Isn't that true? What do you mean?
Yeah, everyone says, if you talk to the marketing people at every company, they certainly,
it's crazy. It's brutal.
They do everything. They check every box. But
I think that's but I mean, I just think that's funny because I say that even for me, but I mean, like your journey and what you're doing right now is basically what I'm doing without 2,499 people, I guess. It's just like trying to be at the cutting edge at all times. But I had to rein myself in actually for this recommendation for the digital twin company. Because even if like what you say, like if you use the cutting edge stuff, it's not really sure that maybe the technology works, but does it scale? Do they have support? Is it documentation? All these kind of things. Is it proven? Regulations, so many things, right? So it has to be a combination of utilizing partners and existing stuff, as well as I think like trying to at least use the cutting edge to get an edge over both competitors and finding margins and these kind of things as well. But I mean, like for me, it's been really, but exactly what you say. Knocking down doors and climbing in through windows and just all these kind of things just to find the problems and then find a solution that just works to go through it. I mean, that's the only thing that I've been doing the last 5 years. And I think I have managed to find both the people, I think, and a lot of solutions that if deployed correctly even today, I mean, you could solve, everything, I guess. I mean, it's not really anything stopping us except for people and processes and all these kind of things, right? But yeah, I mean, it's super cool. I mean, we have so much in common. I used to play soccer as well.
Did you? Okay.
I also want to play as a playmaker role. So yeah.
Okay.
Very similar there as well.
Do you still play?
No. I talked about this yesterday. We're having lunch with someone in the Industry 4.0 space. And he was doing karate and all these kind of things, right? And I said, I used to do kickboxing and taekwondo, and that was 15 years ago. I stopped playing soccer like 18 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And I think it's like yesterday, right? I played on and off, but I still think in my head that it wasn't that long ago.
Right.
But, it's quite a long time ago, to be honest.
Yeah, my body can't do the things my brain thinks I should be able to do.
No, exactly.
Anymore.
Exactly. Exactly. That's tragic. But I mean, okay, so we're almost at the same, we're definitely at the same path, I guess. I mean, we both treehuggers, I guess, wanting to change the world to a better place, saving energy, saving people. And I think like you wrote in your blog about digital twins about like the jobs to be done, right? And you said like the two primary jobs one is creating better buildings for people, something like that at least. And the other one was making it a financial play. I guess, like real estate, or how could real estate owners get a better financial return of investment or something with,
Yeah.
yeah, that's the other job to be done, right?
Right.
And I was thinking about that. I couldn't really find what I thought was wrong with it, but I didn't think it was correct either, even though I think it's 100% correct. Because I think like
something fishy about it. It's not
yeah,
quite
there's
sitting
something.
right.
I hopefully I can respond in this call, or I have to get back to you. But I think like so my point in that, or on that subject is, I mean, you're absolutely right, and I think like the first point in terms of people, I mean, no one really cares in terms of HVAC or technology. I mean, yeah,
Right.
it's just like, I mean, no one is really talking about it. There's no KPIs. There's no metrics, really. I mean, Comfy got swallowed by Siemens, I guess. They were pretty close. Of like, I mean, pushing towards that KPI or that side of the industry. But I think like it's not something that you really measure. And the other one in terms of financial, I mean, net operating income, or how it corresponds to increased real estate value, I think that's also spot on. I think that's how I've been talking about IT investments or investing in technology the last couple of years, at least. Because before it was more like, I mean, IoT this, IoT that, and I mean, you can do everything, but we don't want to do anything. Okay. Yeah. So it's like, okay, fair enough. And so it's again like this morning I was at a partner company in Finland called Wiredhut, and with Ivan Notgren. He's also running PropTech Russia and part of PropTech Finland. And we were just talking about this. I mean, what are the jobs to be done? I mean, what are the solutions? Not talking about technology whatsoever, just finding out, okay, what kind of problems do you have? I mean, and then just reverse engineering that into a questionnaire. So, I mean, again, not just talking about technology and helping people finding the answers of their own. I think that's really, really important, because I see a huge gap between, I mean, tech companies talking blockchain, AI, machine learning, and these elite jargon, as something was said like on LinkedIn, right? And I think it's needed, but it's not needed in the sense of, if you really want your products to get adopted, then I think like you need to understand the customer better, understand the value propositions. And again, going back to Clayton Christensen, which he was a legend. I love Innovator's Dilemma. I love How to Measure Your Life, and Competing Against Luck. And I love his books. Phenomenal.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, I think they're all right behind us.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I love everything that is done, to be honest. Porters.
Yeah.
I mean, so that was like international management was more about strategy, and Korea also studied a lot of strategy. It's the same actually in Switzerland. And I think that's what's just going back between why I chose this industry, I guess, was a strategic decision, because I knew that it was going to happen. You see like smartphones, exactly the same, right? Or mainframe computers, smartphones. You see cars right now, exactly the same thing. You get Tesla, who's getting like a software approach, and then you have like some hardware in it. Whilst the traditional car manufacturers, they have hardware, then they're trying to jam some software in that, but it still is the hardware thing, and they got a huge, I mean, organization and people and processes and this legacy base that is really, really difficult to get away from. And I saw exactly the same thing, that, I mean, this is going to happen. This was 5 or 6 years ago again. So this is definitely going to happen in buildings. So it's just a strategic choice, and learning more and more about like buildings, like the 60% or 50% energy consumption in the world, 90% indoors. Again, like going back to saving the world, right? So it's something that is bound to happen. You can get a good impact. Learning about BACnet, 60% of all commercial real estate, one API to BACnet. It's just like, it sounds so easy to do it, but I mean, like, the problem is, I think, like, no one really in the industry wants to do it. I think there are a lot of people outside the industry that really wants this to happen, but still finding it really, really tough to get data out of buildings, and can't really figure out what building automation is all about. And I think that's where we're going to see a lot of mergers and definitely acquisitions from the tech giants, and not only like Siemens buying, I mean, companies within their own sphere, but actually like Google, Amazon's, and Alibaba's buying MSIs and these companies, because they know actually what they're doing.
Yeah.
So I definitely see that that's going to happen in the next 5 years a lot to add to the competence and skill set of actually doing the stuff that is needed for buildings. And I hope, well, that was actually a Freudian thing, but I believe at least that this will happen, and it's going to increase the speed of value creation, because I see there's a lot of slowness in the industry today, unfortunately.
There is, yeah, and I second that notion of. I often feel like a lot of us that write about this and talk about this, like we're doing right now, there's this sense of this should happen, right?
Yeah.
But then when you go talk to someone that runs a building, I don't feel like we're speaking the same language in a lot of ways, right?
No, but there's no. I mean, a good example is this with coronavirus, right? So now when we're having this discussion, Corona is everywhere, right? And that's going to have a huge impact on the economy and everything. But I mean, a guy in my network is working with indexing buildings. So shout out to Timo Merberger at Hub API or Hub API Systems. So basically what they do is you just go in, index all the data, making it easier for others to actually, so like Google, making it like the data is searchable, like Google basically, in buildings and building systems and economy systems, all these kind of things. But he shared something on LinkedIn, which was that, I mean, we've seen the urgency. So that's what I'm getting at. I mean, there's no sense of urgency, right? So, but we see the urgency now with the coronavirus, right? I mean, everyone is like, transports, meetings, the whole Italy, Sweden, you can't be in places with over 500 people. I'm working from home, you're working from home, all these kind of things. In the last, 2 months, 3 months maybe?
Like the people have mobilized around this issue.
It's crazy. But imagine if that would happen with climate change.
Absolutely.
I mean, and again, like, why aren't we doing that? So I just reshared it, and I just said, like, okay, if it's not happening to me, as in me as in every person thinks that way, I'm not going to do it, right? Or if it's not happening to me, well, I said, like, if it's not happening to me now, I'm not going to do anything. If it's happening to me in 5 months, I don't care. If it's happening to someone else now, I don't really care. If it's happening to someone else in 5 months, or let's say 20 years or 10 years, why would I do anything, right? I think like that's the biggest problem. I think for me, and maybe for you, I feel that sense of urgency. I felt it for like the last, 20 years. Like maybe growing up in videos or reading too much comics about the Phantom and the Superman and saving the world. Maybe that's the reason. I don't know.
Yeah, but mine was Captain Planet.
Okay, exactly. I think that's something. I mean, I don't know. You have kids? I know you have a cat, but
just a cat. No kids yet.
But still, I mean, you have to leave a better world for the cat then. But I mean, I've got 2 small kids, and I just want them to grow up in a better world that I grew up in. And I think now, especially for young generations that are like 20-year-olds, I mean, they're not thinking that. I mean, they think okay, this is horrible. We can't get any jobs. The planet is dying. All these kind of things. I mean, Greta, actually from Sweden, I mean, she's turning the urgency in the younger segments, but then it's like the okay boomer movement as well. Like, I mean, fair enough. I mean, so it's a lot of these things going on.
But I do feel like that's changing, right? So that tide feels like it's shifting. So when I moved from St. Louis, we were working on getting the first benchmarking ordinance passed in St. Louis. So shout out to the local USGBC chapter in St. Louis and Emily Andrews and everything she's doing there. But if that's happening in I don't know, I know you don't know the cultural and politics of America, but if something's happening in the Midwest that is that progressive, because you see everything happening in New York, you see LA,
on the coast,
Philly just passing, these building optimization laws essentially, right? But if you see that happening in St. Louis, that usually means, hey, something is really happening. And I think what I'm seeing is like this shift. I mean, you see Fifth Wall and all the capital they're raising for these types of technologies, but you see it on the mandate and the ordinance and the laws being passed. It does feel like there's some sort of shift happening, at least
Yeah.
in my little piece of the world, right?
No,
You have,
I hope so. I
yeah.
really, really hope so. But I mean,
Hmm.
you're talking about like the ones running the buildings, right? So I think there are a lot of things
Yeah.
happening down here at for grassroots or like the ones who are really suffering, right?
Hmm.
Or maybe not all of them, but some of them at least.
Yeah.
And then it's some stuff happening maybe up here, but it's still like, but yeah, but I mean, I agree. The whole prop tech stuff or going green and UN development goals and so many
Hmm.
prop tech funds like Fifth Wall and these initiatives where it's becoming also a fashion, I guess. So maybe it's a lot of greenwashing, but I don't really care if it goes to
Doesn't
something
matter.
that actually
Yeah.
promotes the planet. I don't really care.
Right.
Captain Planet. But
Exactly.
but I mean, so no, I definitely agree. I mean, I think that's, and I can see a shift also in the way technology is being deployed. Only
Hmm.
like 5 years ago, I mean, even then, when I talked about IoT, or even if you have that jargon of technology, now there's still like, even if it's a lot of hype, of course, about AI, machine learning. I use the tags all the time in my LinkedIn posts. I don't know if
Hmm.
it's good or bad, but I mean, I think it's
Neither do I.
no, but I think it's something that, I mean, people are responding more to, and they see that.
Okay.
I mean, okay, when I go home, I use Netflix, I use all these kind of things, and it's just like one click, 2 clicks, or
Hmm.
I get all this piece of information, and I use modern interfaces that don't look like shit or are horrible. And when I go to work, I use like 20-year-old technology and
Right.
20-year-old, 30-year-old interfaces, and it's just
Absolutely.
catastrophic. I mean, and I think there's so many, I mean, there are some companies at least that are progressive, and I think like they see that their workforce is 50 plus, middle-aged men mostly,
Hmm. Yeah.
and how are they going to hire? I mean, they can't hire anyone. I mean, everyone
Hmm.
goes to Spotify or something else. So
Yeah.
it's I think like the skill
How are they going to
shortage gap.
hire if they have 30-year-old technology that they're
Yeah,
expecting
but I
these
mean, it's
recruits to
impossible. I
use?
mean, no one
Right.
would like to work with them. I mean,
Right.
you said it yourself. It was like, was that 10 years ago? I mean, all
Hmm.
the stuff you learn in school, right? I mean, it's a classic in every industry, but I mean, some are
Yeah.
worse than others, I guess. I mean, then you go out and you think, oh, wow, they're using this, this, and this. And then he's like,
Yeah.
are you kidding? I mean, yeah, it's just like, and I think that that was maybe acceptable. I mean, of course, it wasn't acceptable back then either, but I mean,
Right.
you didn't really have a choice, I guess. But now
Yeah.
you have a lot of choices I mean, going the developer route, and you know that you can find a job that pays well, or
Right.
all of these kind of things. I mean, yeah, why would you choose something that you know that you're going to work with 30-year-old technology, working with a lot of manual processes, and most of your day goes to hunting for information, and the rest of the day goes to validating that information?
Yeah.
I mean, it's absolutely mind-blowingly crazy. And I'm not only talking about like the build and automation side, it's the technical asset management side that is exactly the same. Like this whole industry, for me, I had like one of my all-time greatest posts on LinkedIn was like when I said that the industry is broken. And that
Hmm.
was because Troy Harvey, he didn't really, I think he said it. He didn't own up to it, Troy.
Hmm. Yeah.
But I know he thinks like that. But I think like it is broken, and
Yeah.
it's not the people, but it's just like the industry in itself, in the silos and the manual ways of working, the vendor locking, all of these kind of things is just something that, I mean, something needs to happen. And I think like it's not going to come from the industry. It's definitely going to come again from tech learning real estate instead of real estate learning tech, I guess.
Right. Yeah. And for everyone listening, Troy Harvey is Passive Logic's CEO. I just wrote. Well, I didn't just write it. I wrote it a few weeks back. But by the
Yeah.
time this podcast airs, there will be a whole newsletter out dedicated to Passive Logic.
If you talk to him as well, or
I talked to him a few weeks
yeah,
back. He talked at me, and I learned a lot. Let's say
yeah,
that
yeah,
he
yeah, yeah.
gave me
Same
a
here, same here.
yeah, he's taught me a lot. But the newsletter I just wrote was basically comparing them to Tesla because,
Yeah,
and this might seem extreme to people that haven't met Troy and haven't heard him speak, but um, I don't feel like anyone's talking about disruption quite the way that he is. I think there's a lot of
yeah,
innovation happening. There's a lot of exciting collaboration happening.
yeah,
But what Troy's talking about is like a top to bottom disruption of what you just said is a broken system, broken
yeah,
industry.
Yeah.
And those might seem like extreme words, but what I wrote about this week was just that uh, I think he's just thinking on a different level, and we
Yeah.
need that type of thinking.
I agree. And I think I'm really in favor of their products. I mean, I invited him here to talk to, well, Synca BIM and Synca Group and Swegon for instance, Assemblin and some other local regional players here in Gothenburg in Sweden. So he was here and he helped me move a couch as well. So that was
Oh,
great.
nice guy.
Actually needed that help. Yeah.
Okay.
Hopefully I can get him some contracts. No, but I think it was really great. So he was on from 9 to 1, and it was just talking about everything that they're doing,
Okay.
and I could just, I mean, from time to time during that day, I was just looking at the other players and attendees, and there were some actually competitors, and they were just they're just staring, right, like deers in a headlight, because it was some of this is almost too hard to believe for those or for existing players, because it's so far off to how it's being done in the industry. For us maybe, or for someone that's more, I mean, I've been really interested in learning from Industry 4.0 player side, as well as the software development, how Netflix, how they build their streaming platforms, LinkedIn. I mean, taking technology where you're at the cutting edge in terms of everywhere, maybe not quantum computing, but almost, and having these AI machine learning algorithms on the edge and all these kind of things, right? So for me, it's just taking what the best things the world has to offer, put them in a package, using drag and drop user interface, so absolutely marvelous user interaction, and making it fantastic piece of technology for installers, so that all that data, what takes days could take I don't know, a couple of minutes or at least hours. So it's absolutely crazy, right? But, and this, I haven't told this to Troy. I think he knows that I'm thinking it.
Okay.
So for me, it's I also thought that it was a revolution or disruption, right? And maybe it is, but I don't think so. So I think it's more of an extreme, evolution, maybe revolution, I guess. But so just to clarify, I think so. My second best post, at least this year, was what the future smart city thinking or something like that, right?
Okay.
And I was just talking about and our session at the HR Expo in Orlando was all about open standards, interoperability. That is the future, all these kind of things. So, and I think what Troy and them are doing, it's definitely Tesla, but I think it's more like Apple in the sense that they're coming to market with with a really nice looking product. Fantastic. Great piece of technology, flawless, combined with wireless stuff. But what
an integrated technology, right? So it's
not, absolutely. Everything is in a package.
Yeah.
Exactly. So everything is integrated, and you get one API to the building, it delivers quality data, and then they have a partner ecosystem. So and I know they got a serious order book coming from the US and elsewhere as well. However, I don't think it's disruptive in the sense that it's for I had 3 stages, right? So one is the legacy technology, you use a lot of wired, a lot of vendor lock-in proprietary systems. I mean, basically where we are today with old technology, right? ID loop sequencing, these kind of things. And then you take the next level, which is basically Troy stuff. So cutting edge technology, you do AI, machine learning, deep digital twin, as he liked to put it, really disrupting the technology side of things, or taking in what the world has to offer in a box, right? But at the same time, you still have to use their stuff. You still have to use their system
I see what you're saying.
in order to drag and drop, and it's still part of their offering. Again, if you look at the jobs to be done, something for people, something for real estate owners, perfect. It fits the bill.
Right. Yeah.
But in terms of taking the industry to the next level,
I see.
That's where in terms of so I had 3 levels. One is legacy technology, all in a box, old technology, right? And here we have new technology, but still in a box, and you have to use their it's some kind of vendor locking, at least with proprietary systems.
Yeah, it's modern, right? It's modern technology.
Exactly. but it's
it
not.
catches us up,
Yeah,
but it's still, in some ways, it's kind of like restarting the industry
yeah,
a little bit. So
yeah.
this industry started as closed proprietary in the 80s, right? And we've
Yeah,
been kind of trying to undo that
exactly,
for
exactly.
30 plus years now.
Yeah, yeah. I
Well,
mean,
not
so I
not
think like,
us, but other people.
yeah, yeah. I mean, all the automatedbuildings.com guys and girls, women,
Hmm.
and everyone else, like Mike Newman and everyone else, has just been trying to do this, right? So
Yeah.
I'm not really sure if Troy's going to use BACnet as the interoperable layer or whatever he's going to use. I hope he's going to use it or something akin to it, because I
Hmm.
think like again, so like the third level is you have products that are open source or whatever,
Hmm.
and basically if you go into the building, it's just an API. Okay, and then you
Yeah.
can select whatever you want to do from the top. You can have whatever software you want to run. It's basically going to be like, okay, let's install this. Okay, let's install this from Troy, let's say. And
Yeah.
then I pump it down and I can use it. Let's uninstall it. And I can use this stuff from James or from Siemens or from Schneider or from Distech or from some BMS suite or whatever. It doesn't really matter. So
Hmm.
like all the integration should definitely happen up the top. And I mean, that's our less focus on integration, more of value creation and innovation. But I think
Yeah.
that this is what sets it apart. But I haven't really, I've tried to get a hold of Troy, but he's a busy man. And so I've been busy as well. But
Hmm.
just to, if this is true, but I think it is. And like the side I see, again, like the third level, which is again, like just total separation of hardware and software, and possibly also more wireless, definitely. So
Hmm.
I'm talking to a lot to Philip Kopp from California. So he's super crazy. I mean, you're pretty crazy. I'm pretty crazy. He's brutal crazy because he's
Uh,
also been in this industry for like 20 years, coming on from the energy side and just figuring out like how broken this building automation side is. So he really
hmm.
wants to disrupt everything, as in like you have like these controllers today, a lot of wired stuff. He just wants to make wireless out of everything, even like the
Hmm.
base infrastructure, as well as augmenting it with their proprietary or their actually fantastic software piece of wireless mesh. So basically
Okay.
what it does, I mean,
And
if you
his
look at it
Connectric,
from,
is that what
yeah,
his
exactly.
company is called? Connectric? Yeah,
So
him and
if
I
you
have
look at it,
chatted a bit, but not
yeah,
much.
yeah, yeah. I mean, he's doing great stuff, I think, and he's really pushing me to be really cutting edge as well, because he's talking, and I'm doing the same. But I mean, about blockchain based stuff and stream
Hmm.
processing and all these kind of things. But I mean, and it's something that we definitely can do. But anyways,
So,
just going back to wrap this
what I was
up, I'm
gonna
just
say, yeah. So let's
yeah,
go back to the third level there.
yeah,
So first level is legacy, basically where 99% of the buildings are today.
yeah.
Second level is passive logic. Um, I think I'm stuck on where you're placing them. So is what you're placing them at? You're placing them at this level because they might have an API where they're going to share the data, and there might be some
Yeah,
sort of app store, but everything below that is so everything
yeah,
at the hardware level
exactly. I
below
mean,
that
like
API.
exactly. I mean, I think like for me, when I see it, if you look inside the building, right, you use
Hmm.
their products. You might, I know that you can use it as a Jace. So you put it at the top,
Yeah.
and then you sort of like oversteer or yeah, use machine learning and artificial intelligence, run scenarios on the existing equipment. So you make that work in your favor without having to rip it out or knowing
Hmm.
exactly what it does, right? And then you can augment it with wireless stuff. But again, like I think you have to use their software offering in order to do this. And I mean, like their software offering is brutal. It's fantastic. It's great. So
Yeah.
why wouldn't you do it? But again, like
But
if you
that's not
look
the
inside,
point. Yeah, I get it.
exactly, that's not the point
Yeah.
really. So it's the same with like Apple. I mean, if you look at their products and their product suite, it works. I mean, just a couple of years ago, I mean, I've been an Android fan for years.
Hmm.
But at the same time, when I'm trying to integrate it flawlessly with my computer or phone or my earpods or whatever, there's always some hassle. You always have to do something, right?
Right.
So even if like this third level is where the industry should be, or whatever you want to call it, it's
Hmm.
still integration work. It's still APIs. It's still a lot of these kind of things, right? So it depends on how you see it. But I definitely think their product is, yeah, I mean, it's phenomenal. But to counter that with, let's say, so Dave Lapsley is another cool character from the UK. So they've been a systems integrator for, I don't know, forever, I guess, working out the UK, specializing in, well, every controller there is. And they've seen all the problems and they've wanted to do something about it. So they created a software suite called Sentinel and Bubble as well for more user interaction. So I think like they got a patent in the process of turning backnet objects into, so like drag and drop Android environment. So it's like they got a native backnet to Android app bridge, which is pretty cool. And it works in the same way as passive logic in the sense that you can replace the JS or put it in the building, then understand everything, how it goes on, and then one API to blah, blah, blah. So basically the same, but the difference that they've only got software. So they can put it on a tablet, they can put it on a generic hardware something, all of these kind of things. So there's a true separation of hardware and software.
I see.
Which is not the case with Troy stuff. So that's a sort of a, what do you call it, a minor point, right?
Yeah.
And not to say that their stuff is better or that passive logic stuff is better. It's just different. And for me, I'm trying to, like the companies I'm consulting for, just showing the pros and cons. I can't really say, I mean, this is better, this is worse. This is what it is. That's the only thing you can do, I think.
Yeah. So with the passive logic model, I mean, one thing I like is that the down to the edge, every controller has intelligence as to where it sits in the building, what it does, who it is, what its name is, what it's connected to, what its purpose is. So just Troy calls that the deep digital twin. So in that third layer model, where you have hardware and software disconnected, you can run any software on any hardware. How do you get that functionality in that future world?
It's a great question. And luckily, I've actually got the answer. Well, maybe at least. So I think I've been, like I said, I mean, I've been trying to figure this out. So whenever I stumble into like a roadblock, I try to get over it. And it doesn't really depend if I go into smart grid, if I go into construction, or if I go into asset management, it doesn't really matter. So a company that works, there are three companies. So one was the one with Timo that does indexing of the data in buildings. So there
you
you
that's called like Hub API?
Yeah, Hub API systems or Hub API integration, I think. Well, basically what they do, like they go in, then they take all the data sources, you make it searchable, and you sort of like can tie it together. There's another company called Unify, which is also part of their offering from Serenity, which does the same thing. So basically you go in, you take all the data, you sort of like create tags, I would say, or index it, and then they have like the tools to pull them together and also create a user interface. So it's a combination of indexing the files and also RPA, which is called robotic process automation. So you can also do these things easier. But the one that I have in mind the most is something called Platform of Trust, coming out of Finland. And they're sort of like owned by, what do you call it? The Jimmy Hoffa, what do you call it? Jimmy Hoffa in the US. He represented what? What do you call it? The unions.
Okay.
Yeah. So the unions in Finland, in terms of construction, in terms of real estate, I think those are the ones that are sort of like behind Platform of Trust. And they also received, I think, like 10 million euro funding or something. So basically what they do is they have a self-service platform. So it does two things. So it's both, well, first of all, it's business oriented. So again, like if you have all these disparate data connections and basically what you said, you don't know how that ties into either the digital twin or how they relate to each other, anything like that. So they have something to go in, again, do the indexing, and then they have something called, so like a trust score. so they know what data they can be able to trust, where it's coming from, based on like 10 or 12 different parameters.
Mm-hmm.
And then they have like a self-service tool, so you can actually like match these together. And this is also becoming more into an automated process. So that's where you can, okay, let's say you go in with, BMS Analytics Suite, so that controls all these kind of things. You use this kind of platform to tie it together, so you have this sort of like the relationships between them as well. And then you do the indexing, so you can actually tag it up, so make it sense of it. And then maybe you have something in between, as in a streaming platform, where you inject the metadata tagging schemas or ontologies like Haystack or Brick or whatever you want, right? So that's a combination of, again, like utilizing like all these kind of things in an open way, interoperable way. But of course, you have to know what you're doing. You have to find the solutions. You have to find someone that does it. So, but if you package all of this together in a box, in a building, then you get Troy stuff, So like, you want to buy that for a really good price that does the job, or these two jobs, or do you want to have openness so that you have a building that anyone can work on in the future? I mean, and I'm not saying that Troy and Passive Logic are so like keeping the buildings for themselves forever. But I mean, like you're gonna pay someone, so why not pay them as well? So it's just like different sort of philosophies, I guess, or perspectives in how to create intelligent buildings, I guess.
Yeah, and I do like the analogy of Apple and Android. I really think, you could talk about the similarities between Passive Logic and Tesla, like I did, but it's really like they're creating the iPhone of buildings, essentially, which is something that we do need. I think one thing that Troy has opened my eyes to is these two separate narratives that we have going on, and I think maybe you're hitting on those two narratives as you're talking about this. But the first narrative is this, what I would call like the overlay narrative, where you have, and this is kind of what Troy's saying we need to replace, but you have old technology as your controllers, right? And then we're adding all this intelligence to kind of make up for the shortcomings of the old technology, right? So that's where you have analytics software sitting on top of and integrating with the old technology, pulling the data, but also sending commands. That would be the overlay paradigm, I guess. And what Troy's saying is no, all of those platforms, all of those solutions are making up for these shortcomings that we can actually just remove from the whole equation by starting at the edge with intelligence.
I mean, I think there was a company, I can't remember the name, I was going to do a shout out again, but I mean, like, it's a build smart from start, right? I mean, why wouldn't you do that? I mean, exactly. So I think, like, no, I definitely agree. And I mean, there's only, I guess, so much you can do with technology that came into existence 20 years ago using technology based on like 50 years ago. And I think that's definitely what he's saying as well, like going in and ripping everything out. And I know that Philip Kopp from Connectric is also the same mindset. It's just like, I mean, forget about it. I mean, just go out, rip it out, and I mean, and do that kind of thing, right? So I'm not really sure. I'm a little bit on the fences, because I know that buildings are pretty slow moving, at least. I mean, okay, when we're going to get to smart grid inclusivity and node balancing buildings and all these kind of things, then it's going to be faster data and more cohesiveness in a smart city environment, I guess. And it's going to be a lot of data is going to go back and forth. So maybe that's where you actually need to do these kind of things, and then probably you need to do it now, right? But
I think what my thought is that we have these two paradigms, right? Troy's coming in with this new paradigm, but we're going to have both for the long-term foreseeable future, right? There's so many building owners out there that just made a BIS upgrade yesterday, right? So how, and just all the people that have made them in the last 15 years that just like they don't have the capital to replace all of that hardware, wiring, like they just don't. So they're gonna have a BAS, right? So
Yeah, absolutely.
they're gonna have these old 30-year-old technology that they just installed
Yeah,
yesterday. They're gonna have
yeah,
that for a while. So there are millions of buildings out there that are like that.
yeah.
So these paradigms are gonna coexist for
Yeah, maybe that's the
a
case.
long
Maybe I'm
time.
just too hardcore and wanted to choose the best solution at all times. But I think like
Yeah.
you're absolutely right. I mean, when I talk to, and I think this is interesting, if you go like in the third bracket and just using cutting edge technology and that works in silos, so to say, but in an interoperable way, I mean, there are companies like Econo and Stream Analyze, both of them from Sweden, that have these small machine learning AI frameworks that you can put on a sensor level or in an edge gateway level. And I've seen it actually work so that it learns the building and then it helps the building sort of, I mean, do all the things that it should be done. So let's say if you have, I mean, at my previous office, or when I was a management consultant, we had on Fridays, everyone's supposed to come in to eat breakfast, right?
Okay.
And of course, like the what do you call like the CO2 levels and the temperature in the cantina or in the restaurant at
Uh-huh.
the office was just like horrible.
Yeah.
I mean, we
Yeah.
couldn't be there.
Uh-huh.
But what they sort of claimed and what I saw in action as well was that you put these AI machine learning so like algorithms and you tweak it in such a way so that okay it should learn, right? So then you connect it to a couple of other different data sources. So let's say like the CO2 sensoring, temperature sensors, meeting bookings, etc., etc., etc. And then you can see that it doesn't need to have access to like the classic trends or historical data. It just learns the behavior and
Yeah.
it creates a digital DNA, especially for that building. And so that building actually runs itself. It's just dependent
Okay.
on whatever data sources you take in. So that's also something that sort of like negates the fact that you have to rip and replace. Because if you can get this and get it at the top, work with something that sort of like oversteers the existing stuff, then why not? It should work because you have a meeting booking for 100 people on Friday. The system knows this on Wednesday or Thursday
Right.
evening. Then it's gonna sort of like make those adjustments beforehand, and it's gonna go towards that scenario. So
Yeah.
I mean, so it could be done, but again, like it has to. You have to know what you're looking for. You have to have specialized skill set. Again, going back to Troy stuff or Dave stuff, it's not rock. They made it so easy so that maybe you could do it. I probably couldn't do it, but I mean, like someone with the experience and
Maybe.
the skill set, maybe. But someone
Yeah.
with the experience and the skill set can actually do it in a really modern way. So I think like those two, their solutions is for me, I think, at the top of the. I mean, they're the
Yeah.
cutting edge, so to say. Absolutely.
Okay. Well, I'll have to get those two on the podcast at some point soon,
Yeah,
so we
absolutely.
can. I'd like to get a debate going between Nicholas and
Yeah,
Troy.
that would
That'd
be
be fun.
great. That would be amazing, actually. No, but I
Uh,
mean, so I think like both for Troy, I mean, I love his stuff, their stuff. Dave as well, and Gurmeet, who's also one of the founders. I mean, I love what they're doing as well. But I mean, I really want to, I wouldn't say break them, but I mean, like, I really want to test them because I always want to get so like the customers that I'm advising like the best technology. So I really
yeah.
want so like, and they might think that okay, why are you talking about Dave stuff or why am I talking about Troy stuff? I mean, I just again like going back to I would just want to make the world a better place. I mean, I'm gonna advise on the best tools for that
Yeah.
job. And right now, I definitely think they're the ones. But in 5 years, I mean, and I think this goes back to the traditional ways of working in this industry. I mentioned this at the one of the so like the seminars at the HR. And Brad White, who's working at what's it called, out of Canada anyway with energy management, he's actually a rocket scientist by trade.
Okay. Okay.
But I mean, I just heard that. I mean, okay, so in this industry, okay, why did you install these products? What do you mean? I mean, why did you choose this vendor? I mean,
Okay.
we've had them for 20 years, or like they installed it the last time.
Right.
And that's also like the argument of why you could use it, right? And for
Because
me,
they knocked on
that
our
sense,
door, and so
yeah,
we
yeah,
might
but I
as
mean,
well
like,
have chose them.
yeah, and I think that sense of loyalty towards something. I mean, maybe they have fantastic products. That's not what I'm saying, but I mean, like, my
Yeah.
loyalty goes to the ones who again, going back to Clayton Christensen, I mean, get the job done in the best way, open way, interoperable way, fastest way, or whatever that can contribute to a better, I mean, better buildings, better society, better planet, and better buildings for people. I mean, I think that's where my loyalty lies, and that's I hope that's where it's going to lie forever, I guess.
Yeah, let's swing back to that. We have about 10 minutes left. Is that where you're at? Okay. Let's swing back to that for a little bit. So you brought up my blog post, Why We Need Digital Twins, which I'll put in the show notes on this. But the premise of that is basically building on Clayton Christensen's R.I.P. Clayton Christensen. Building on his concept, it's like a mental model, jobs to be done, and saying that the primary jobs to be done in a building are make the occupants happy, right? And the primary example that we use in the HVAC world is keep them comfortable, right? So whatever they're there to do in that building, the building should support them in that. That's the job. And the second one is a lot of times buildings are an investment for the owner of the building, right? So they're trying to make a profit, and everything that happens in that building is to support that profit, which is understandable. And what I kind of laid out in that blog post is that, and really it was in developing that blog post, going through this thought process, right, of writing down all the different things that we do in buildings and solutions we sell and activities, but they all just funnel back up to those two main jobs to be done. And I think from what I've seen talking to building owners, I think that language, in other words, taking all of our solutions that we're trying to sell in this industry, whether it be analytics or a control system or whatever, throughout my career, that language has been missing when we go to sell our solutions, when we go to implement our solutions.
Absolutely.
We're not, as an industry, taking and packaging our solutions to hit those two jobs to be done. Is that what you're seeing with your clients as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Spot on. I think like now when you're talking about this, I mean, I think it's beautiful in a way. I mean, I really think so, because I mean, I think like Brad White wrote a seminal piece about like the $3 billion opportunity, right?
Okay.
Where he's making the argument about the 330-300 rule. Like, you could take 20% out of $3 to $30 and $300, which is well-being and productivity, which is definitely like the biggest segment and like the most elusive segment as well. And I think like again, like that goes back to one of the things that we haven't really talked about, or what you're talking about right now, which is people, well-being and productivity. I mean, that's like the biggest expense, and as well as again, like, why do buildings exist? I love the old Vitruvius architect saying like buildings are just three things, right? It just has to be three things. One is robust, in the sense that it has to pass the test of time, right? So that is a building. It has to be robust, and it has to be useful. Basically what you said as well. I mean, for the tenants or whoever is in there, it has to be fit for purpose. A hospital, a school, office building, whatever is different. And the third one is attractive. And that's something I definitely think is missing. So for me, so like robust, useful, and attractive. And the funny thing is here, the interesting thing is that if a building is also a system, I guess, and a system is made up of all these different parts, right? So if you have to have the building that's going to be robust, useful, and attractive, inherently you have to use products that are robust, useful, and attractive. And I would say like products today in the industry, if you go back to the first bracket, are maybe robust, sort of useful in a way, not attractive in the slightest, not for the users. And I think that's exactly what Troy wanted to change. He wanted to put a fantastic piece of technology into the hands of the installers.
That's awesome.
That is robust, it's useful, and it's attractive. And I think that's the first one that I've seen, and that's why they're going so well. And this is something I tried to do at GoIoT. For different reasons, we couldn't really do it. And when you look back at Nest as a product, or iPhone. I mean, I'm from
Absolutely.
Sweden. So many companies, so many friends that, or colleagues even, that worked at Ericsson at the time, or even Nokia, my Finnish friends. And I met so like one of the, anyway, so they were just bashing on the iPhone, right? It's
Okay.
crappy technology. The antenna doesn't work. It's just horrible. Our technology is much, much better. We've been in the business for 20 years. Who do you think they are? Similar to what everyone was saying about Tesla as well. But the thing is, they just hit the attractive name. You know, like that's the stuff. It's just like attractiveness. That's the thing. It was something new for the ones who were using it.
Yeah,
If
it
you
just
look at
felt
Nest,
good.
yeah, but it looked good. It didn't even know it felt good, but it looked good. If you look at Nest as a product, as a smart thermostat, it wasn't really brilliant or innovative or anything. It was beautiful.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that it was. So I think, like, again, going back to who are we doing this for? It's people and normal people, I guess, as in not the tech nerds. I love to talk about all this stuff, but I mean, not a lot of people do. And it's definitely like the owners. So they need something that you can talk about. Okay, how is this robust and useful? And how is this attractive as well in terms of just visually pleasing, but of course attractive in terms of user experience, user interaction. And I think that's really, really important. I think that's just a simple way of measuring this. And this is just also something with the beautiful part when you were talking about this is that, and I think this is, it's actually a good thing to sort of like, to leave the show or this thought is that how does this product, whatever it is that like your sort of like, what do you call it, screening or vetting or even developing as a product, how does this contribute to these two jobs? Okay, so you have like 3 products, right? And then you say, okay, product A, B, C. This product, how does it contribute to, number 1, the job to be done with people, and how does it contribute to, my net operating profit, whatever it is. And then there's a lot of stuff around it in terms of support, documentation, robust usefulness, attractiveness, all these kind of things. But again, like having that as a true North Star, I've only been using actually mostly the people aspect, but I've also, again, like when I talk to real estate owners, it's just about, just talking about net operating profit and real estate value. And the holy grail in Sweden is definitely not about lowering the costs. It's about finding new business models and new revenue streams.
Exactly.
So that's the holy grail because that's exponential. The other one is just like what do you call a zero-sum game. It has a bottom, right? Finding new business models, leveraging the data, not necessarily going the Facebook way of selling the data, but finding ways around it or in it that corresponds again back to number 1 and 2 of the James Dice holy 2, right?
The jobs to be done.
Exactly. I think like that's beautiful. I think that's phenomenal. I think. So we haven't really talked about digital twins that much. Maybe that's for the next.
We'll have to do a part 2. But, Well, we have a little bit, but not specifically. No. Well, I think we should wrap up. I want to say thanks again. I think this has been a valuable conversation for me. I wrote down like 40 different companies that I'm going to have to try to put in the show notes and get and check up on for the newsletter. So
and the code that everyone should use is actually there's another building whisperer. He was actually before me, so but use that as well. Use the building whisperer as a code for these companies, and you'll get a discount.
Got it. Okay. And
probably not, but then the company's gonna ask why they're saying the building whisperer all the time.
Who the hell is the building whisperer, and how do we find him? Yeah. Exactly. So how do people find you? So he's Nicolas Waern. Is it Waern? Is that how you say it?
Nicolas Waern, I guess. I don't know.
Waern. So you can find him on LinkedIn. He's definitely active on there.
LinkedIn mostly.
Yeah, LinkedIn mostly. So.
And I didn't even say what I'm doing. So I mean, I'm from the company WINNIIO. That's what I'm doing, and I'm consulting me and a couple of other ones, just consulting about all this digital transformation and what it means and how it, of course, corresponds to people and money. That's
got it. All right, and I'll add that to the intro of the show before we send it out. But let's definitely catch up and do a part 2 sometime. And I'm gonna go ahead and hit stop recording, but thank you. Thanks for the time and thanks for the wisdom. Appreciate it.
And thanks, before you stop, I mean, thanks
Okay.
so much. You actually stopped, right?
No, I didn't.
No, you
good.
didn't.
Keep going. Yeah.
No, I mean, thanks so much for what you're doing. I mean, I think your blog and the newsletter is phenomenal.
Thank
And
you.
again, like I know I recommended you for your NISA stuff. I'm going to keep recommending you for stuff. I think what you're doing is absolutely fantastic. So thanks a lot. I really appreciate it.
Music to my ears. Thanks a lot.
Sure.
Cool.